teacher.
Okay, where are those boys? They're the Cam, get in here. All right. So, for chicken fabrication, this week you're going to have to do this for the Nocti run through. So, the first thing that people always mess up is they have their chicken upside down when they're trying to cut out the spine, and they're actually trying to remove the breastbone, which is incorrect. So you want to make sure that if you look at it, its little legs will be upright and its wings will make it look like it's going to make a hug. So that is the breast side. You flip it over to the other side. And so you'll notice this chicken's a lot smaller than what you're used to. This is called a fryer. What you're used to probably seeing is a roaster. Roasters are a little bit harder to cut apart, but not nearly as hard as cutting apart a turkey. So we are going to take the spine out. If you cut right here, we're just going to make an incision kind of through the skin so that you can see roughly where we need to cut. And this is the tail. So we'll take the point of the knife, and you're going to hear some cracking, but you want to be very careful because you don't want to go too far through the bird because you could actually end up cutting through the other side and damaging the breast meat. And there's a whole bunch of different techniques out there for fabricating your chickens, but there's no really wrong or correct way of doing it. It's just whatever method you choose. So then you flip it over, and we're going to cut the spine out.
Did someone take my cookies out? Or did it not go off?
And we don't get rid of anything, so that will go into our chicken stock. And then we will feel down through the center, and you can see how it just pushes down through naturally. That's where you're going to cut through. And then this is the market form of a chicken half. So if you order a half for doing like fireman's chicken, this is generally what you would get. Then we're just going to cut right through here. You just push it down, and it's only skin through there. So you cut right through the skin. So now you have a chicken leg quarter and then a breast. So the chicken leg quarters we can then cut down further. So if you look right here, there's like a natural connection of this fat. We're going to go right through there and go through the joint. Now you can see when I'm pushing down, and I really have to push down, that means that the joint is not underneath my blade because it should go through real easy. So I need to move one way or the other to try to find that joint and see how easy it goes right through. So if you're really having to be forceful, then you're not in the right spot. So next we're going to take out the wings. This is very much like a human arm. So you just take it out right at the joint. And then there's two more joints here and here. So we're going to take the tip off. That'll be saved for your stock. And then we'll cut the wing. And this is what you would use for doing chicken wings. Now, chicken wings that you order at the restaurant are larger than that. They're generally off of roasters, and they're what's called a 6 to 8, meaning there's 6 to 8 wings per pound. That's how big they are. So these ones are much smaller, obviously. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take it off the bone. So you can see here where the rib cage comes up across. There's some cartilage and connective tissue and sinew. So anything that is waste, we'll just trim off. Now, you'll notice right in here, there's a bone that sticks out through. Right here, this little tiny bone. This is the wishbone. So at Thanksgiving dinner, you guys are always fighting over who gets to save the wishbone and then break it and make a wish. That goes into the breast right here. So if you see a piece like this, you have to trim it out. You can't leave it in there, or it'll be a physical hazard in your chicken. So if for some reason it broke, just trim it out, throw that in your stockpile. And then we will go right across here and take out any cartilage from the breastbone.
Chris, are you watching?
Yeah.
And then we'll clean up this cartilage and connective tissue there. So you'll notice this piece here that almost naturally wants to fall out. That is known as the chicken tender. So it's actually a separate muscle that's inside of the breast, and you can just remove the tender. Inside the tender is a tendon. So if you look at that right there, that is really, really tough and chewy. It's like that sinew connective tissue that we get out of the beef. So if you just hold your thumbnail down on it and drag your knife across it on an angle, it pulls that tendon right out, and then you can cook it down with the stock because it contains gelatin, and it'll help make your stock nice and thick and rich. So we'll keep the tenders for another use later on. And then if you want to take the skin off so that you have a boneless, skinless chicken breast, the skin literally just peels right off, and you only have to trim it in a couple areas. And throw that in your pile for stock. So when you are done, you will have 2 drums, 2 thighs, 4 wings. This is the wing part, and this is the drumette, it's called. 2 breasts, 2 tenders, and then your scrap pile. So just keep in mind when you're cutting down through, if it's taking a lot of force, then you're in the wrong spot. Because it should be fairly effortless to get through most of this stuff. Especially with this small of a bird. So here, we're going to look for that natural line. Go right down through there. Notice I'm switching back and forth depending on what I'm using the knife for. So when I need to get into these little nitty gritty pieces here, I use my boning knife because it's nice and narrow and sharp and gets in where I need it to. But then my chef's knife has the force and the strength behind it to go through those joints real easy.
Are all of our knives going to be sharpened for the nocti?
Yes. Yep, we go through and we sharpen them ahead of time.
Are we going to have one of these small chickens for the noctis?
Yes. So the chicken breasts here, they're so small that that's a basic portion. Where with the larger chickens that we get in, they're generally so large that you would have to cut it down into thirds or sometimes even quarters to get it to be an actual portion. So on this side, you'll notice that there's more of a bone here. So more of the breastbone was on this side. So I just go right down along that inside, and I'll be able to feel where it hits the cartridge there underneath. And then I just follow those lines and go down across. And then all of this just goes in the scrap pile. We can take out the tender. And I mean, you're welcome to leave the tenders in also, but that's up to you. So this one doesn't have a big enough piece sticking out, so I can just run the tip of my knife up under. And I can trim that out that way. Whoops, sorry.
Just get them with chicken guts.
So when you're cooking chicken, one of the things to take into consideration is whether or not it's the same thickness the whole way across. So if when you get done, it's a lot thinner down here than it is up here, and you're afraid that it's going to dry out while you're cooking it in the one spot while you're waiting for the other spot to get done, just take a piece of saran wrap and put over top of it, pound it out with a meat mallet a little bit on the spot up here so that it levels it out to the same thickness, and then you're good to go and it should cook at the same rate. So, but for the nocti, you'll have your tray will look like this, but the only pieces that you're going to be using will be this.
So they just look to see how the other ones came out cut-wise?
Yeah, and I don't know whether they even look. I look for my judging and grading purposes. So when you do it this week, I want to see your tray set up just like this. Then after you take your picture for sesame, you will take your 2 breasts and prepare your recipe. So they just look to see like the process and
And they give
how